Hi, Corey. I'm hoping I'm not too early and it messes the link up like last week. Jen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thanks.
Your hair looks beautiful.
Thanks. I was like, it's kind of like a party in the front, in the back is not really, so. It was in a ponytail all day, and I was like, well, should do something with this. Hi.
Say hi, Susan. No. You're crazy.
Hi. Hi, Susan.
Hello.
Hi, guys. few more people jump on. My kids are very loud in the background. They're supposed to be cleaning up, but you can probably hear it's a very loud process.
Well, so I sent my husband away, and I can hear, if you ever listen to Dave Ramsey, like the beginning music of his podcast, I can hear it blaring in the other room.
How are you feeling, Susan?
Good. I'm probably going to be like super out of breath just because.
How is your husband?
Much better, thankfully.
Oh, good.
We've been riding bikes every morning for the last 3 days, so.
Oh, good. That's huge.
And he did lift 4 today and yesterday.
That's a big turn then. That's good.
So thankful for that.
My kids have been even praying for him at night. It's really cute.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you and get started, and people can jump on when they jump on. But we have, as you guys all know, Susan Gladstein leading our call tonight, and Susan is amazing. She is a 1-star diamond in Arizona, and she, if you follow her at all, you know a little bit of her story, and she'll probably tell us some of that tonight. She has gone through some stuff. She was deployed herself. Her husband was deployed. They've spent a lot of time apart in raising kids and jobs and just all kinds of other things. And she's gone through, attempts to get pregnant, and now she is pregnant, which you probably know. She's just amazing, like super positive, super full of energy all the time. She's just a light. And what Susan is really good at, one of the many things Susan is really good at, is knowing like who she is and branding herself. So if you follow her, which you should if you don't, you know that she is fierce. You know that her brand is Glad Warrior Fitness, and she just does a really great job of sort of weaving that into everything she does. And so she's going to talk to us a little bit about what that means and how, when life throws all the junk at you, like the infertility or the miscarriages and the deployments and all the things, difficulties with ex-husbands and co-parenting and things like that. Not plural ex-husbands, but an ex-husband. Just all the difficulties with that. She's going to tell you kind of how she has leaned in instead of taking a step back and what that has meant for her business. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Susan.
Thank you so much. First of all, Corey, thank you so much. Like, it really, truly is an honor to be able to chat with you guys, and I've been getting messages all day and all week of prayers for today and just in life in general, but it means more to me than you would ever know. So thank you very much for that. But I did want to talk sort of about my brand and the warrior mindset and how you adopt one for yourself. I have a few takeaways, but I'll start kind of where it all began. So if you don't know, a warrior is somebody who's engaged in some sort of struggle or conflict. And I think we can all relate to, at some point in our lives, we've been a warrior, even if we didn't see ourselves that way, just by definition. So when I started off as a coach, I put it off for almost 2 years of saying, no, I don't have time. No, I don't have time. I will never do that. I will never put a workout video. I will never take a sweaty selfie. Like, I was adamantly against it for almost 2 years. But when I decided to jump all in, I created my brand, Glad Warrior Fit, right off that. And part of that for me was just like figuring out who I was, what I wanted to stand for. I took like Glad from Gladstein, but also the positivity aspect, because it was a huge thing at my life, and to think forward in that way, because I don't know, I guess I've always been sort of an optimist, but the whole idea of embracing positivity and all of that, the whole warrior thing had not even come to fruition at the time that I was like, this is what I want to be. I wasn't there yet. And so let's take a little trip back in time. I would say that my warrior story began when I was about 14. For those of you who don't know, my dad committed suicide when I was 14, and it left me with all of these like abandonment issues. I struggled in relationships because I was like searching so much to be loved. I didn't love myself. I always felt it was somehow my fault. And at the time, so my dad was bipolar, but nobody talked about it in our family. It was like mental health still is a bit of a taboo topic, way better now than it was then. But like, my dad was in the hospital for months, in a mental hospital, and everybody just said he was sick. And I couldn't figure out why somebody who was sick could go to the zoo for the day. Like, it didn't make sense to me, but nobody talked about it. I guess kind of sensed something was off, because he would, for days and days, like literally gave my brother and I at 12, I was 12, my brother was 9, the keys to his car. Now, we lived on 10 acres in Texas, and it was fenced in, but he literally gave us the keys to his car and went to sleep. Like, who does that as a parent? Like, I think about that with my own kids, like, there's no way I would be able to sleep through that. And that was just kind of our life. It was my normal life, but I didn't know that there was anything that was really like, that was just my life. So let's fast forward to my 21st birthday. Just after that, I joined the Air Force completely on a whim. I'd spent 2 years going to college, and just, I wanted to go see the world. My friend said, hey, I'm going to go to the Coast Guard. I told her, don't go to the Coast Guard, go to the Air Force. I hear it's better. I don't know. And we left for basic training 2 weeks later. It was completely and totally on a whim. And that was 19 years ago now. So I met my kid's dad, got married very quickly, got pregnant very quickly. And my whole life, I wanted to be a mom. And I think part of it was, again, like that struggling just to feel loved, because I'd had so much abandonment issues, that kind of the first person who was sort of stable that presented themselves, like, I just jumped right in super quickly. And man, if I think about that time of my life, it's really kind of like, I have no emotional attachment to it, really. It was 6 years of being emotionally and verbally abused, where I was told I wasn't funny, I shouldn't dance, I shouldn't sing, which, by the way, are two of my most favorite things to do in the whole world. And I put them off because somebody told me I look like an idiot and I shouldn't do it. And so through this process of becoming a coach, I've kind of like figured out, well, you know what? I've always loved dancing. I would spend hours in my front yard when I was in 4th grade dancing like an idiot. I would like pretend I was ice skating on my rollerblades in my driveway in the 8th grade. Like, who even does that as a teenager? But that was my thing. And for years, I just didn't do it because someone told me that I looked like an idiot, and I just believed them and went with it. Like, it breaks my heart. So now, coming up with this brand, like, I wanted to give the message that it's okay to dance like a spastic idiot if that's what you love. Like, embrace that as who you are. You're going to find other spastic people like Rachel Bodine who will dance with you in an elevator and not mind when the doors open and some creeper got there. Like, you'll find your people. Just be who you are meant to be and do what you love to do. So keep moving on to 2008. I was newly divorced. I was trying to figure out who I was. Like, I had spent so much of my life trying to please everyone else at the expense of my own happiness. Like, I was just really a shell of a woman. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I stood for, like nothing. Like, I just kind of existed and relied on what other people, the feedback that they gave me to tell me who I was. And so I was taking pictures. So in my military job, I do like public relations. So I was taking pictures at a picnic, at a barbecue, of some guys who were getting ready to deploy. I had one job, and it was to take pictures of the whole event. And the only pictures I ended up with are of Daryl, which, if you know, that's my husband. So we have this whirlwind romance for 4 days. He goes off to Iraq for 8 months. And I promise I'm not psychotic. Sent him a card every Monday while he was gone. And that's kind of like where in that whole process, like I was completely smitten and adored him and whatever, but it kind of kept me sheltered from the whole dating scene. And so I could really figure out who I was. So in 2011, we got married. We've been living apart. He lived 100 miles from me. So then it became this whole like juggling all our blended family and kids and visitation. And we went through a custody, like really nasty custody battle for his kids, where he didn't see them for a year and was told that he was abusive, like right off the bat of our marriage. Like it just was this whole like crazy time where at the time we weren't like super into our faith so much. He grew up as a Christian missionary, but kind of got away from it. When I joined the military, I'd gone to church my whole life, but it was just kind of not something that was there in the forefront. And man, I don't really know how he made it through those times without it, but it kind of led us to rediscovering our faith and volunteering for mission trips and sort of just figuring out what our core values are as a family. But in 2015, my son, I had moved away from my kids for about 4 years, worked at the VA hospital, and my son was having a ton of behavioral problems. I was driving 4 hours to go to all of his counseling appointments and parent-teacher conferences. He got diagnosed with ADHD at that time. And so I was just a frazzled mess, like honestly. And that's when enter a very loving and patient and kind angel named Jenny Lori Hope. I had been part of one of her 3-day refresh groups with the girl I went to high school with. And I was in such bad shape at the time. The 3-day refresh, like I literally could not get out of bed after the second day because my blood sugar had crashed and I could not function. I had hypoglycemia at the time, which was mostly exercise induced because I was a CrossFitter at the time, but I hardly ate anything because I felt like, I don't know what I thought. I was so skinny, like probably underweight, but I wanted muscles, and I thought, oh, well, you just eat a little here and there and you drink all the protein shakes. And then you're going to want some pre-workout before you go and lift. And honestly, like the stuff I was taking was destroying my system. I had migraines, I had digestive issues. Like you do not want to be at the squat rack when you feel like you're going to use the bathroom. And that was my life for like 3 years. So Jenny Lori would every once in a while be like, you're a really great coach. Because again, I was a CrossFitter. When my husband was gone on a second deployment to Afghanistan, I lived in this town. My kids were away. My parents were away. I had no friends. Community we lived in was primarily retired people, and I never really fit in. So CrossFit became sort of my community, and that's kind of where I started this figuring out my warrior spirit. I started taking Krav Maga at the CrossFit gym. I was lifting like nearly twice my body weight on deadlifts, which I never could imagine I would ever do. I got my concealed weapons permit. I was like shooting and doing all these things and like feeling like I could take on the world. And I had a guy that was like, I don't know, twice my body weight and 6'5", tell me, I feel sorry for anyone who ever tries to attack you. And that was me, like, yes, I want to be this empowered person. So I decided to go all in as a coach right in the very beginning. I'd never even done a Beachbody workout, but I was struggling so much. I moved back to where my kids were and just couldn't make it to the gym. And so I got started with Hammer and Chisel, and it changed my whole life. Something I swore I would never be, home sweating to the oldies and doing home workouts. Yeah, I'll probably never go. But I mean, I go to the gym now and then. It's not my thing. But I really just wanted to share like this whole empowerment and whatever. So when I first started as a coach, everybody tells you to do personal development. And I was like, that's dumb. I don't have time for that. There's nothing I need to change. So why would I need to read personal development? And when I really took a step back and realized how much of my life I needed to change at the time, my nutrition was a disaster. I was not consistent in my workouts because my day was super crazy, and by the afternoon it was not happening. My kids were both in baseball. I was coaching my daughter's girls on the run team, working full time, doing my military job. My husband lived 100 miles from me. So I was like, I don't have time to read. So somehow, some way, I decided that enough was enough and something had to give. So I read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, and it totally was a huge game changer that I, to this day, will recommend to anyone when they're first starting, because it really helped me realize that small changes day in and day out add up to big results. And so that was kind of the catalyst to me working on one thing in my life at a time that needed fixing until I got really good at it. So for me, that was like mastering my workouts to becoming a morning person. So I started getting up at 6 instead of 6:30, and then it was 5, and now most days it's like 3:30 if I have military, 4 or 5, which I swear I would never in a million years do. So that was kind of the catalyst for a big change. And then I became like addicted to reading personal development. The second book I read, I think, was probably Tony Horton's 11 Laws That Will Change Your Life. And boy, did it. Like, that was really, if you haven't read it, I really recommend it. But I'm going to kind of give you some takeaways from his book and how I use them and relate in my life. But if you need some action items, you might want to toss some notes. But these are sort of my tips, thanks to Tony Horton for the idea, but how to adopt a warrior mindset. So his first one is do your best and forget the rest. And I think, like, as a struggling perfectionist mom who felt so much mom guilt over taking time to work out, and especially in the beginning, like, my kids would interrupt me in a workout and I'd be like, oh, fine, I'll just do it later. And they're like, no, go ahead, get it done. Like, I think they realized that I was a much nicer, more patient mom. Eventually they started working out with me and everything changed. But sometimes in life you just can't do it all, and that's okay. Like, you can't dwell on what you can't change. You know, what's happened in the past has happened. Your day got away from you. Maybe it wasn't your best, but you can't dwell on that. You have to, like, take that and move forward, because it is easy to get in the trap of this circle of negativity, but it can easily go the other way if you let it. His second is to find your purpose. And I think this was an area of my life that I was missing for so long before I found this team and Beachbody. Like, I always just saw myself as a career Air Force person working for themselves. Like, the idea of owning a business or working on my own was, like, not at all of any interest to me ever. And now it's like all I want to do with my life. So I think that it's interesting to find your purpose and passion, especially in ways that you might not expect. And it could be in areas where you're adamantly against doing something because you feel like you don't have time. And what bothers me most about having said no for 2 years of being a coach is I honestly put off my purpose and passion for 2 years because I didn't have time. So if you feel like you're faced with one of those things where you don't want to do it, like, really think later on, man, am I going to regret this later? Like, you never know what's on the other side of a challenge like that. His third is to have a plan. I think that for me, I'm a little bit squirrel, so I kind of, like, will pick different things and I'll get these harebrained ideas and kind of go with it. But realistically, having a plan that you can come back to is really, really important. I think what is so cool about this business and this team specifically, having Corey as our leader, is she has a very like we have very like do this and do this and do this and you will have success. There's like no secrets to it whatsoever. You have to do the things even if you don't want to. That's part of the plan. So just remember that, and keeping with you know, your core of who you want to be. His number 4 is variety is the spice of life. So it's so true. Like I said, I am a bit of a squirrel. I'll come up with these weird ideas like, oh, that sounds like something fun, and I'll do it. And sometimes it is a disaster, and it never bothers me. I just am like, well, that didn't work. Let's move on. And other times you might be really surprised at something that you come up with, and mixing it up. Just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. Which brings me to number 5. Consistency reigns supreme. And Corey will tell you this all of the time. Consistency, consistency, consistency. But what if life sucks? Like last year when I was deployed and all I wanted in the whole world, because I felt like the Lord was calling me to have a baby, and it wasn't happening, it wasn't happening. I had a positive test and then I wasn't pregnant, and I felt like he had forgotten me, and that why am I going on this deployment that I really don't want to? And then I lost my stepdad and my grandfather. Their funerals were one right after the other. And then I left it was like one was Friday, one was Saturday, and I left my deployment on Sunday. My kids messaging me every day, when are you coming home, when are you coming home? And not being able to be there to help them through the grieving process of their grandfather. Just like life, I feel like 6 months of my life was on hold while everyone else kept living their life. And I was angry because I wanted a baby and it didn't happen. And every single morning while I was deployed was like, I had to fight myself to stay positive. And what I did to do that was I honestly poured into other people. I faked it till I made it. I would go around asking everybody, hey, it's Thankful Thursday. Tell me something you're thankful for. And I was shocked at the number of people who couldn't think of something they were thankful for. We should all have at least one thing, whether it's being in the Middle East where the humidity is like 98% and it's 122 degrees outside. You can be thankful for air conditioning at the very least, but we should always, always think of something we're thankful for. And that's something that I have found when you start seeing those things, like things in life as blessings, that's all you'll see. It's kind of like they use the analogy, and I'm not sure where I got it from, but when you decide on like, oh, I'm gonna buy this car, and then all of a sudden all you see is that car you want to buy. Like, you never noticed it so much before, but now they're everywhere. And it's because whatever you focus on is what you'll see. And so when you start focusing on your blessings and things that you're grateful for, you'll kind of forget the negative stuff. So that was a huge thing for me. And in fact, just the other day, I had a guy that I was deployed with who also had a really rough year coming out of his deployment, messaged me and said, you don't know this, but that day that I sat in the car with you and you asked me what I was thankful for, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that day. It changed my whole outlook on my deployment. And I go back and think about that day all the time. And so, realistically, when you pour into other people and they're saying things like that to you, it's hard to get wrapped up in your own, what could be a first world problem. I mean, my not having a baby when I wanted to have a baby, like realistically, if I was to be honest about how things worked out, I'm so much more glad that I went through that whole year of growth, paying off debt, building up my savings, just changing my whole outlook and blessing, and the testimony that came out of the waiting. And even today, my husband and I were talking, like, it's hard when you're in those times of like things are good, like our prayers have been answered, to go back and think of those hard times in the waiting. Like, I don't want to ever lose sight of that, because there is like such a gift in realizing that blessing. So number 6, that was a really long one, sorry. Number 6, crank up the intensity. I don't know how many times there's been in my business where I'm like, okay, I am ready to be a 2-star diamond. I want to be making all of this money. And you know what? I was not ready. As the leader, as the person who was wrapped up in material things of the world and spent money like a crazy person, I needed to grow before I would be ready to have the responsibility to mentor others or lead other people. And so sometimes you have to be okay with where you're at. I'm not saying give up your goals, but at the same time, sometimes that like fighting for what you want, that intensity that you have to crank up to get there, is all part of the process. And it makes it so much better. Number 7, love it or leave it. Okay, so if I'm being totally honest, clean eating groups are not my jam. They're not. And when I first started as a coach, everybody was doing clean eating groups, and that was what you needed to do. You need to have a free clean eating group. And I would do it, and I hated it. Hated it. Why am I doing this? I don't know. And so when I started sort of figuring out who I was and realizing I'm like, you know, my thing, people would say that they know me for my mind's positivity. Why am I not doing free groups that are focused on that? So I started doing groups about random acts of kindness. So I'd have a challenge where I would go out, pick up trash, take a selfie with a random stranger after you gave them a compliment, things like that. And that was so much more meaningful to me. That made the business fun. Nobody else was doing it. So it was kind of like am I doing something wrong? This is weird. No one else is doing it. And you know what? Love it or leave it. Like, don't do something that you hate. This business is amazing and it's super fun, but don't get stuck in doing something you hate just because someone else is doing it and saw it with success. You have to find what is good for you, what you're passionate about, because otherwise it just takes the joy out of something that is truly a gift and a blessing. Number 8 is get real. Sometimes it's really hard to get real with ourselves. Like, let's be honest, we have complete control on how things go in our life. Like, we can't control what happens to us, but we control how we respond to things. So keeping with being solution-minded and not on those roads to be the thing that makes you get off. So you start doing that, when you start getting off track, you're no longer looking out for your well-being. And I don't know why it is, it all happens. And I know each of you have seen this in probably your own life, especially in customers. When stuff hits the fan in life, why is it that the first thing that goes are your workouts and your nutrition? Those are the 2 key components that are going to fuel your body and give you stress release and those happy endorphins so that you don't lose your ever-loving mind when stuff hits the fan. So yes, last year was terrible when I was deployed, and yes, it was a struggle, but you better believe I was up at 4 a.m. every morning, whether I wanted to or not. Even if I half-assed to work out, I got it done, because I knew that I was going to be standing at my desk for 10 to 12 hours dealing with the most annoying person in the entire world that I've ever worked with in my life, that sat literally right next to me. And I had to do that or I would probably choke him out. So if I can tell you anything, when stuff hits the fan, and I know that there's injuries and I know that there's illnesses and sometimes there are things you just can't help, but maybe that means self-care in a different fashion. Maybe that means resting or allowing someone else to serve you. Don't give up on those core components that you know are good for your overall health. Number 9, that's also leads me into finding your balance. For me, I had so many things about my life I wanted to change when I first started. And realistically, you can be successful like going in 90,000 different directions. So for me, it was finding the one thing I could focus on, getting small wins right in the beginning. And that was with my workouts. I'd already loved working out. I was a track person and I played soccer and I was always super active. So the working out part was easy for me. The nutrition, on the other hand, was a whole other story. I needed to get consistent and working out every day to get those small wins to build up my confidence, because when you start having those little wins and you keep promises to yourself, you build confidence that allows you to stretch yourself. In my case, it was my nutrition that took me probably about 3 years to get a hold of. I also worked on organizing my kids, creating chore charts, like waking up earlier before them so it wasn't just like a crazy mad woman and why are they moving so slow. Like, it is a process, but you do want to get those small little wins where you can get them to build your confidence. Let's see, I'm reading my notes here. And sometimes there's areas that need more focus than others, or you have to read at different times, and that's okay. But you just have to, on those times where you're struggling, you have to, if anything, lean into this team. I will tell you, there are the most amazing people that I have reached out to at different times that I don't know where I would be without them. But you need people to be around you who are going to give you godly wisdom and advice, and not just have a pity party, oh, woe is me. It's okay to say, yes, this sucks, but don't stay there, because all it's going to do is eat you up, and that is not productive whatsoever. So lean into the team when you need to. Take a mental health day off of work. Rest when you need to. And just keep going. I mean, even the Lord took a rest day. Number 10 is to stay flexible. We all experience tragedy or trauma at some point in life, and we have to have flexibility to accept it. Like, we know that change is going to happen. We know that things we don't plan on are going to happen. And I don't know why it always comes up to us and we're like, oh, it's like so surprising. Like, it's going to happen. You just have to learn to accept it and deal with it. And I'll tell you, something that has made a huge difference for me is like quieting my mind and doing yoga. So the first time I ever tried yoga, I went to a class at the first space, and there was this so I'm 5'3", and this guy was like to here on me, very small man. He was in a unitard, and he was very, very eccentric, very flamboyant. I mean, he was as cute as he could be. But he started talking about when he was in the circus, and I lost my ever-loving mind. And it was like a nighttime yoga. So everyone else that had been used to going to the class, they're like seriously sleeping, knocked out. And all I could think was the unitard guys in the circus. Like, I could not quiet my mind. I hated yoga, hated it. And the first few times I ever tried it, I could not quiet my mind. I couldn't sit still. My mind was always going a million miles an hour. I always had noise and distractions, always listened to music and whatever. And I'll tell you, I spend more time now in quiet than I ever did before. And I feel like that is what grounds me. That is what gives me peace. And that is like been a huge game changer. So whenever I feel like overwhelmed in life, I can go to that quiet place and sit and be okay with it. Whereas it was a struggle for me for so long. Number 11 is recharge, recover, and relax, which I've talked about these a little bit already, but I have an alarm that reminds me 30 minutes before it's time to go to bed. And the whole time I was deployed, everyone made fun of me because right at 7:30, my alarm would tell me I needed to go to bed at 8 o'clock, because I knew if I didn't, It would be harder to get up at 4 o'clock the next morning to talk to my family and get my workout done. It would be harder for me to stand for 12 hours a day next to the world's most annoying person, nose whistled the entire time, all day while they breathe. I wouldn't be able to make it through the day if I didn't do those things. And so people knew literally they had to ask for permission in advance if they wanted to keep me out past 8 o'clock. And for the most part, I was very disciplined to say no, simply because I knew Nose Whistler would get to me tomorrow and I would choke him out if I didn't go to bed on time. So if I can tell you anything, having an alarm on my phone reminding me to go to bed has been one of the greatest life hacks, because I wouldn't be a morning person without it. But I do my best work in the morning, and if you would have asked me 5 years ago that, I would have been like, no, that is never, ever happening. I'll never be a morning person, no whatsoever. And here I am telling you, setting an alarm and being strict with your rest time is key to success. And I get it, there are things that happen. But whenever you find yourself in those situations where you're 100 miles an hour for too long, eventually you can't go. I mean, I feel like I just came out of that, a 3-week stint of swimming up current. Eventually you're going to want to just drown or something. You have to be able to take care of yourself. And I think that is one thing, especially as moms, that we find so difficult to do. But don't feel guilty about it. It's really what makes you better. So those are my 11 things. I hope you got some notes out of it. But when I get stuck on my path, I try to remember the past, the hard things that I've been through, where I'm at today. And I definitely look at others and lean into this team, their experiences to help me get back where I want to be. I am human after all. But once you start making those good decisions and keeping those little promises to yourself, you gain confidence. And when you see yourself in a more positive direction, you actually become addicted to the change. Whereas I used to be afraid of it before. I rarely skip my workouts because I know that consistency is key to my physical, my mental, and my emotional well-being. And it helps me with my creativity and productivity. And plus, my whole life, I wanted to be a mom, and especially a cool mom. So I really strive to keep my status, because my teenage kids tell all of their friends to follow me on Instagram if they need some help with getting fit. And I want to keep that up, and I don't want to yell at my kids anymore. So you've probably heard me say before that I am more busy now than when I felt busy. But the way that I work in my relationships and every aspect of my life, I use these ideas that I talked about that help me when I fail without being discouraged. And there's always a growth opportunity in there. It's not hard to achieve amazing things when you do what you love. And I love doing this with all of you. And I'm so very thankful. Gosh, I don't know where I'd be without this team. So I am super thankful. And I hope that something I've said was useful to you. If anything, go read Tony Horton's book. It's really funny. I didn't realize before that he was trying to be a comedian before he got into health and fitness, but I love him. The book made a big difference on me. And just thank you so much.
Thank you, Susan. That was awesome. So many good takeaways. I definitely, that I completely agree with leaning in when things are hard and just staying consistent, because I use the analogy a lot of the well, pumping the well. If you were to go to a country, dig a well, and you started pumping the well, pump and pump and pump, nothing happens, right? Nothing happens. But you keep pumping. And that's kind of what we do. It's akin to what we do. We pump the well, we whack the tree, I say a lot. We do that every single day. And then eventually the water's flowing. And then it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to pump that well when the water's flowing. But if we stop and take a month off, or take 2 months off, or weeks off, or whatever, however long, and then we try to start again, it is so much harder. It's so much easier just to keep the well going. And I think that it's possible, yes, but it's not super fun. It's a lot easier to just keep it going. And also, to Susan's point, I think for me too, anytime I'm going through something difficult, it helps me so much to help other people. Like if I'm other focused and focused on serving someone else, then I'm not sitting in my my grief, and not to say that there's not a time and a place for grief, there is, but we can sit in that for so long and it puts us in like a depressive state, and we can really just let that sort of overwhelm us. And it really helps me get outside myself and focus on others. And so that too has been really huge for me, Susan. But so many great takeaways, and I think you're amazing, and I am so appreciative of you sharing that and your preparation and coming and sharing with all of us tonight. Just thank you. And I know a lot more people were going to watch the recording, but anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Hope you all have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.